This is Kayla Carey, and this is my end of Module 4 assignment for Global Ethics. In this video, I'll be discussing gun control, including different considerations and issues, Jeff McMahon's stance on gun control as well as my own stance, if Rawls would allow guns in his just society, and gun control on a global scale. There are both political and moral issues with gun control. Political issues include the Second Amendment right concerning individual versus state, crime rate concern with the belief that more gun control will lower crime rate, and grassroots from people and organizations like the NRA. Moral issues with gun control would be owning a gun, which would make others feel unsafe, as well as on the other side, having a moral right to self-defense and personal security. According to Merriam-Webster, the definition of justice is the quality of being just, impartial, or fair. I believe that to mean treating everyone equal. Therefore, it would be unjust to remove gun rights from citizens who wish to own a gun, but it would be just to allow the option of gun ownership available to all. This would ensure that everyone who wants a gun can have one, and everyone that feels unsafe with other people having a gun could get a gun and increase their comfort. Just because some people don't feel safe riding motorcycles or having motorcycle riders drive next to them, doesn't mean we ban motorcycles, because that would be unjust. This would be a justice argument for gun ownership. Now we're going to talk about Jeff McMahon's stance on gun control. McMahon strongly supports gun control. He believes only police should have guns. In his podcast, he says many things about guns and gun control. He thinks that more guns means less safety for citizens, and he believes the possession of guns violate personal security, which is more important than self-defense. McMahon mentions that if cars are more dangerous, we shouldn't be able to legally have one, even though you consent to being killed every time you drive a car. I emphasize legally because he talks about laws and legality of owning things a lot, but just because something is illegal does not mean people won't break the law, and I think that's important to remember. Lastly, he believes that any person who has purchased a gun is responsible for mass killings. I personally find that statement angering because my dad owns a gun, he was in the military, and is a strong believer in the Second Amendment, and I would never think that he was responsible for those horrible tragedies in any way. So do I agree with McMahon? Now, I'm very much against his stance on gun control, even though I'm not strongly for or against owning a gun. There are many reasons why I don't agree with him, but these are just a few. He mentions the prisoner's dilemma, saying that a person who wants a gun should rather accept nobody having a gun for safety, but somebody will always have a gun because they exist. He also brings up people not consenting to being killed by a gun, but people don't generally consent to getting murdered or dying in any fashion. Another argument for gun control was that some other countries have guns, but alas mass killings, so he thinks we should have a gun prohibition and only allow cops to have guns. Well, we tried an alcohol prohibition, and that not only increased alcohol consumption, but also created more corruption and caused other drugs to become popular. Think about how that would end if people still had guns, as well as having a bunch of crooked cops that smuggle them to citizens for money. I doubt that would end well. He continues to mention that he thinks only police should have guns, but also says that thinking only law-abiding citizens will have guns is a fantasy. So how could any of his suggestions work? Guns have been invented and they exist, so somebody will have them. And when he says that only law-abiding citizens having them is a fantasy, he basically discounts all of his prior arguments, because even though police enforce the law, they don't always follow them. So in conclusion to this point, I disagree with McMahon not only because I'm not pro-gun control, but because Mr. McMahon discredits most of his arguments throughout the duration of his podcast. Now let's talk about Rawls and his just society. I don't think that Rawls would allow guns in his society. He states that people have equal rights to basic liberties with similar liberties for others, and the right to bear arms is not one of those basic liberties. Owning a gun could put others at a disadvantage because it would be less safe, and therefore the society would not have total justice. Unless everyone was 100% in favor of guns and would own one if they wanted to or felt the need to, I do not think guns would be allowed in his society. The three factors outlined in the video entitled Why Some Countries Are Poor and Others Rich are institutions, culture, and region. This means that not all the people on the globe have the same knowledge, beliefs, or resources, therefore generalizing specific issues globally, such as gun control, is quite difficult. I personally don't believe we should make it a global issue. Different cultures have different opinions on guns, different regions have a lesser or greater need for guns depending on government and citizens, and some regions may need guns to hunt more easily. There are too many difficult aspects to consider when thinking about gun ownership to generalize it globally. If a single nation can't get gun ownership laws under control themselves, then how could we handle it on a global scale? However, if you were to think about and address the issue globally, the UN could possibly be a resource to mediate gun ownership and smuggling, but I don't think that's realistic, and in addition, there are many more pressing issues that affect the whole globe besides gun ownership. This is the end of my video, and these are my citations. Thanks for listening.